Hey, everybody. Welcome to SF DocFest. I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers for the festival. You've just seen the really wonderful film, Any Problem is No Problem. And we're lucky enough to have the directors, Alyssa and Zachary, here. Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
we're thrilled to be here.
This was a neat film to kind of run into for, a few reasons. One, it's always neat to see what other Bay Area filmmakers are up to, but also there's so much talk, about this, kind of world that it was kind of neat to kind of get an intimate kind of peek behind the curtain. Was kind of curious, what was it about the subject matter that most fascinated you, and how did you to kind of decide to go down the rabbit hole of making the film?
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks for having us, Chris. We're thrilled to be here, and it's always great to, screen at a hometown film festival. We've been in the Bay Area for 15 years, and so it's great to be with a hometown audience. One of the things that we were really interested in doing was going beyond the headlines of crypto. It does kind of have been portrayed in the media in this negative way, in this like crypto casino way. And we were really interested to dig in deeper and meet the people who were passionate about developing, not so much on the cryptocurrency side, but on the Web3 space side, as you guys all saw in the film just now, and really start to understand like the personal motivations and the backgrounds of the people who are passionate about developing in this space.
Yeah, and like you said, this was a really unique opportunity to go peek behind the curtain, go behind the scenes of not just the crypto space, but like where do tech companies, where do startups literally get their start? Who are these people and how does it happen? And this was an incredible opportunity to really go inside that space that is not, often possible.
Well, and I guess, once you knew you wanted to kind of make the film, how did you kind of decide on the people that you were going to follow? And was there any reluctance of like you being on camera? Because obviously you're going to, in that space, it's like you're going to try a lot of things and fail, and sometimes you might not want to say show there with the world. But yeah, how is that relationship building wise? And for lack of a better word, how did you kind of cast the characters that we see in the film?
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
great question.
That's a really fun part of the process. So there were a couple factors that we were kind of thinking about as we were going into like the casting process for the film. There were 26 teams that were selected for the incubator, and about a month before it started and we needed to be filming, we got a list of everyone and we looked through the list to number one, we wanted to find companies that we felt like were trying to solve a real world problem that a general audience could understand as an access point into this crazy, confusing, technical world of crypto. So that was like kind of the first pass. And we hopped on Zoom with a bunch of teams who had these really interesting companies that were solving these real world problems. And then we were looking for people, like you said, who would be open to having us follow them through this really intense 3-month process and be open to the way that we make films. So we're verite filmmakers. We always want to embed and just follow people as they live their lives. When you do that in a business setting, there's another layer of kind of filtering that a lot of people want to have. And so we were really talking with people about building trust, developing our relationship. One of the key things that we talked about and as part of our process as filmmakers is that we wanted to screen the film for them before it would be screened publicly so that they would have an opportunity to see and feel comfortable that they would see it and we could talk about anything that concerns them before it went out into the world. And so that was kind of like the process that we went through to find the protagonists for the film.
Very cool. And you let's say you kind of talked a little bit about the kind of verite storytelling approach you guys took. Can you kind of dig into that a little deeper in the sense of like, what was the kind of a visual aesthetic that you wanted to kind of approach these stories? And when you're following multiple different people, are you just on call all the time and this kind of responding day to day, or like for those of that kind of haven't made films, like what's that kind of that process like? And what's exciting about that.
Totally. Like Alyssa and I both have backgrounds in cultural anthropology and visual ethnography, essentially documentary filmmaking from an anthropological perspective. And that is like rooted in verite or observational filmmaking. And so we really count on trust and as like the centerpiece of the
Mm.
filmmaking process. And so we do try to spend as much time with our protagonists as possible, and we're building relationships with them as we film. And yeah, I mean, we are essentially kind of on call, always kind of chatting with our protagonists to figure out, like what's happening, what's going on. We spend a lot of time hanging out with them, whether or not the camera is rolling. It requires just a lot of patience. And it's all about relationship building so that we're there, we're with them when these moments happen, and we can put the camera, I'm the cinematographer throughout most of this. So I'll put the camera on my shoulder and start rolling when we see, a moment approaching.
And we did actually, so the, school is down in LA. We live in the Bay Area. So we relocated for like the whole 3 months
Oh
down
wow.
and lived down there so that we would be available to film. And we also try to keep the team, as small as we can so that we're as unobtrusive as we can be as we're, following people in their real lives.
And was it what do you think most surprised you kind of in the journey of making the film in the sense of like what did you I mean, you folks seem like open-minded folks and you're documentary filmmakers like but were there certain assumptions that you had about the story that was going to unfold or about crypto and um when you reached the end of, I guess to go into the editing room were there any particular surprises or ways that you kind of saw things differently than when you first began?
Yeah, I mean, from the start, my knowledge of the crypto space was what you see in the news, right? And so it was more about NFTs and cryptocurrency and this kind of boom and bust cycle, and this idea that there's a lot of scams happening in the crypto space. And as we started to research and really dig in to this cohort of co-founders in this crypto space, we learned about like the big wide world of Web3 and this idea that sure, there's the crypto casino side of blockchain. And then there's this other side where these young people who have grown up online are looking at the web and saying, this doesn't work for me. There's no space for me here. Let's build a new version. And
Yeah,
for
that
us,
idealism.
yeah, that idealism and this idea that like when you go online and you're surfing around, you're doing whatever you're doing online, tech companies don't necessarily have the right to own your data or profit off of it. We can make a new version of the internet that doesn't do that. And that was just captivating to me. I had no idea about Web3. And so we were really interested, all the companies in the cohort for this particular incubator were focused on building kind of the rails of this new internet, this new version of the internet. And I think that was really interesting. And this idealism that all of the builders have was really fascinating because I think it's a story not often, told in the media.
If I can add to that, one of the things, your question was also kind of like, what did we find in the edit? Our experience spending, 3 consecutive months basically with all of the protagonists who participate in the film was delightful in a lot of ways. It was stressful also in a lot of ways as they were kind of, getting ready for demo day. But there was so much humor that was coming through as we were filming, and we were just really hopeful and that humor would also translate to the screen. And we were like beyond delighted to find these like moments of levity, these moments of comedy where we could just kind of like let the audience relax and laugh and kind of like be there in the moment. We always feel like that helps connect people across from the audience to the screen. And so we were just like continually delighted with the moments of humor that we found.
Yeah, it was quite delightful to make a documentary that was like fun and funny. A lot of times our work can be serious, and documentary can be serious, and that's also super valuable. But it was really delightful to live in that fun space.
Yeah, well, it definitely seemed like it was a cool film to make, and also it was kind of inspiring to see these stories, just in the sense that nobody's kind of resting on their laurels and just kind of continuing to try new things. I mean, it's exciting to see people just kind of have things that they get excited about and see what they can pull from it. I assume some folks in the audience are probably wondering, like, do you want to kind of share updates about some of the characters and the companies since you guys wrapped the film, or things that have gone on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So IYK is doing amazing. They are integrating their technology on a tour, and many tours with many bands, which in a new and exciting ways
Yeah.
from what you see in the film.
Yeah, they really have leaned into like supporting musicians in their,
Hmm.
not only in their merch, but on their tours to help the bands connect with their fans directly, kind of bypassing some of the bigger gatekeepers on the internet to be able to do that.
And Brandon and Cher are pushing forward the platform, and right now they're doing a big push to bring new artists to the platform. So Brandon's really working, especially within his capacity as an artist and a musician, to get the word out, to bring more users, more artists onto the platform. And then Bello has done a major pivot. Do you want to talk about
Yeah,
that one?
so Bello has pivoted, and if you go to their website, you'll see it's being redirected to a new space now where they are really helping support NFT creators create the best possible NFT drops possible and connect directly to their audience through sales.
Very cool. Well, on that kind of entrepreneurial theme, and the thing I always try to remind our audiences is that we're lucky enough that filmmakers like you all share their films with us earlier in their life cycle. And so our role, us in the audience, is to kind of go out there and kind of help spread the word, kind of be the grassroots street team for the films that we see during the festival that we love. So can you guys tell us a little bit about how can we continue to kind of follow the film and your efforts, and then also kind of amplify the voice out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main landing page for the film is the place to go for more information about spreading the word about the film. It's anyproblemisnoproblem.com. There's going to be a list there of future screenings, festivals, and other fun events that the team is putting together for the film. And that's really kind of like the hub of all things for the project.
Yeah, and I think, it's a fun film to share with people who maybe have heard about crypto but feel like it's inaccessible, it's too technical. In this film, we really tried to lean into the human stories and the potential of the technology. And so that's kind of a conversation starter for it.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I imagine, this will be kind of, as folks go to kind of a backyard barbecue or you grab a drink with friends, if it's like, it's definitely a film that it makes you want to kind of talk about it afterwards. So thanks again for making it and sharing it with us here at SF Doc Fest.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
thanks
much,
so much
Chris.
for
It's been
having
our
us.
pleasure.
Thanks, guys.